try thinking about business when you've got like a 90 kilogram Filipino man on your head. Like it's not going to work.
You got a crooked smile, well that don't bother me much. You double over working double time, you double tough. I'll just shine it up until the sun hit like a glare. I gotta dare, get the fuck up out the chair.
Dr. Simon Chard is a leading cosmetic dentist from the UK, a sustainability advocate, and co-founder of Parla, the planet-friendly toothpaste tab brand revolutionizing oral care. Simon has been featured in GQ and made waves on Dragon's Den with his vision for a greener future in dentistry. He's known for his great smile framework and innovative approach to patient care, and is a strong advocate for mental health. In this episode, you'll hear the inspiring story of a dentist who built a booming brand while staying grounded. Dr. Chard opens up about the habits that keep him balanced, like meditation, jiu-jitsu, and being present with loved ones. He shares insider tips on transitioning from clinical work to entrepreneurship and how he launched a wellness retreat to support his journey. We also dive into modern-day challenges like phone usage, the story behind Parla toothpaste, and the heated fluoride versus hydroxyapatite debate. Tune in to discover practical strategies to achieve work-life balance and grow your business without losing yourself in the process.
Welcome back to The Happy Dentist. Full disclosure, I'm filming from Capri today, which is what you're looking at. Kyle, since we know that Simon is your best friend in the UK, would love for you to give a little intro.
So Simon's like my best friend in the UK, okay? I wish he lived down the street from me.
Do you have a best friend in every country?
I would say I have a best friend in every country. Christian's my best friend in Spain now. He used to be my best friend in Brazil. So now I have another.
Am I your best friend in LA?
Yeah, sounds good. Simon is really an amazing guy. I mean, he and I have connected over the years. I think we've only seen each other in person maybe 2 or 3 times. I don't know, something like that. But I feel very, very close to him. We've had long conversations. I mean, we have a lot of the same things happening in our lives, but he's an amazing person. He's not only a great clinician, you know, like most dentists, but he is an entrepreneur. He is an amazing father and husband. He's a thought leader. He's forward thinking. He's a great communicator. So I think everybody listening today is going to learn a lot from my friend Simon Chard.
Tired of bouncing between ClinChecks, refinements, and Invisalign bills? Serving patients is what you do best. Leave the back and forth to us. With TwoFront, you get to unwind, fully automate your Invisalign practice, and watch your patients receive the highest level of care without losing any control. From closing your patients to designing ClinChecks, managing insurance and compliance, your TwoFront team does it all. Think of it as a splash of simplicity. Use one simple platform to have full visibility of your patients in treatment. Dentists and orthodontists across 150 practices have jumped in, seeing their Invisalign production soar without adding any extra chair time. TwoFront members have seen a 350% increase in production, adding over $100,000 in profit to their bottom line. Whether you're on the court or in the office, TwoFront helps you ace your goals. See how TwoFront can transform your practice. Visit mytwofront.com/Ingrid to book your demo and dive in today.
Well, I'm really excited to dig in. Simon, something we were talking about before the show is what it means to you to help dentists get out of the office. And you just dove right into entrepreneurship and starting businesses. How did you transition from being a clinical dentist to starting a business outside of dentistry?
First of all, lovely to be on, obviously, with good friends, Kyle and Christian. Ingrid, we've just met, but yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show. In answer to your question, I've been, I think, a pathological entrepreneur throughout my whole life. I've always had one business idea or another. My brother and I set up a protein fruit smoothie company called Blends with Benefits probably about 15 years ago. And there's been a variety of other failed entrepreneurship attempts, from shipping in ties from China through to a scrubs brand. Wish I'd done that one now, just seeing how well Figs have done. But yeah, lots of ideas have come and gone along the way, and many more ideas continue to pop up into my head. So I think the entrepreneurial spirit is something that is just within me, and I'm really glad that with Parla, with my oral care brand, we've managed to do something that actually is making a really big difference. I don't want to minimize how difficult it is to launch a startup, as everyone on this podcast knows, but it's very rewarding, and it gives a lot of variability, a lot of unique opportunities, unique learning opportunities. And I think as long as you go into these things with the view that you're going to learn or you're going to win, then you'll be successful, whatever the outcome.
Tell us more about Parla, because there's some people that don't know what it is. What is it? What's the mission? How long you guys been doing it? Tell us more.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've got some here actually. So this is what Parla looks like. So it's basically, at the moment, it's purely a toothpaste tablet brand, but all of our products are plastic-free oral care products. So basically every tube of toothpaste you've ever used still exists somewhere on the planet. They're almost all made of single-use plastic, which takes up to 500 years to break down. And that plastic, as we all know, is making its way into our oceans. 20 billion toothpaste tubes are thrown away is the current estimate around the world each year. And we're all aware of how many microplastics are now making their way into our food system and even into our bodies. If you look at the recent studies on how many of us have plastic in our bloodstream. So we wanted to do something to disrupt that industry. It is a very much an outdated industry run by big brands who only have one focus, which is maximizing the profit for their shareholders. They want to drive prices down as low as possible and do big volume. And therefore, the quality of the products that we're all using is not good enough as far as I'm concerned with regards to what I want to put in my own body. And I'm sure we'll come on to sort of wellness and health later on, which is a big passion of mine. So basically myself, Dr. Rona Iskander, who many of the listeners will know, I'm a very high-profile dentist from the UK, and then one of our sort of business mentors who's a little bit more low-key, Adar Stanky, we all came together to create something that could be a true solution to the problem. So basically every tablet has the exact dose of toothpaste that you need for every single brush. And the beauty of this completely plastic-free glass jar with an aluminium lid is that it can be refilled. So it's a closed-loop, fully refillable solution. And since then, we've gone on to innovate with regards to our ingredient decks, incorporating vitamin inclusions, incorporating probiotics, trying to be very proactive and progressive with our approach to sort of more modern oral health. Things like removing SLS and other sort of ingredient decisions are kind of a no-brainer for a dentist, but don't seem to have made their way into the big brands. So as we were discussing before the call, we're B Corp certified, we're Leaping Bunny certified, we're vegan certified, and it's going really well. We're in the supermarkets all across the UK. We've got thousands and thousands of subscribers online. We started initially as a direct-to-consumer brand, and we were on Dragon's Den, which is the original Shark Tank, as I like to call it, but on the BBC.
Was it before Shark Tank?
I think so, yeah.
Really? Oh, I didn't know
The
that.
OG Shark Tank.
Me,
So,
me, very American thought of me, just thinking everything starts in America.
Yeah, exactly. So we were on Dragon's Den back in 2020. They filmed it and it went live on national TV in 2021, which was quite a crazy experience. But again, another one of these sort of unique life experiences that taking the big risks that it takes to start your own brand offer you. And it's hard work, but it's good fun.
You went from being basically a full-time dentist, right? I know you were speaking a little bit here and there too, but now you're not working 5 days a week as a dentist. You're working a few days a week as a dentist, and you had to make that transition. How did that transition happen? Because I know all of us have gone through that, but for you, how did you, what were some of the steps that you did to make that transition that, hey, now I'm not going to be here on Thursdays, or hey, now I'm not going to be here on Mondays, or every other week I'm going to be off this day? How did that work with your patients and your team? Tell us more about that.
It was very much a gradual process. I think we launched Parla in 2020, so we started the R&D back in 2019. It took us about a year to get to market. At that stage, I think I was already working 4 days a week clinically. We have a 7-surgery practice, Rothy Lodge Dental, which has got 34 staff, I think it is now. So that already required a lot of my time to be the entrepreneur running that business alongside my wife, Megan. I wanted to take the time out to work on the business as well as in the business and gradually sort of pull myself away from full-time work at the chair and be more involved on the business side of things. Because again, that's where my passion lies. As passionate as I am about clinical dentistry, but I wanted to fulfill both parts of my psyche, I guess. So I was already on that journey to reducing my clinical days. And then I just gradually took it down. I mean, the funny thing is about clinicians who reduce the number of their days is, and I don't know if you guys experience the same thing, but when you start doing less days, the interesting thing is your revenue remains the same, or it goes up.
Yep.
And anyone who's doing advanced rehabilitations and implant work and digital, and it requires a lot of planning. So given how protective I am over my family time and my personal time, I didn't want that to filter into my evenings and weekends. And so I was already on a journey to create more space in my weekly calendar to facilitate the treatment planning. And then obviously that has then like grown into now running Parla and running a whole nother business, which takes up a lot of my time.
And inside the Parla business, what is your role?
So my official role is CEO, but I have an MD that sits underneath me as well. And my focus is towards brand and NPD. So on the brand side, when we have to pitch to new retailers, when we have to pitch to investors, anytime that someone needs to come on and speak passionately about the mission and why we're the right team to execute against that mission, that's where I have no trouble, whether it be on live TV or pitching to a venture capital. That's my area of expertise.
You're the face of the company.
Yeah, and I know all the individual components, and anyone, I mean, you guys have both dealt with venture capital. When you're dealing with venture capital, you need to sell the dream, and they want to know about what your CAC to LTV ratio is, or your ROAS, or all of these other metrics that VC like to talk about. And so I've got quite a broad knowledge base. I'm a voracious learner, and I really enjoy learning about business. I keep on calling myself pathological today, but I probably do take in too much content around business growth because it is a passion of mine. So I've got a very broad base, I guess, to have that conversation alongside the passion for the brand. And that takes up a lot of my time. And then on the back end, it's the NPD, because again, one of our NPD sort of credos within Parla is no greenwashing, no gimmicks. And so we work in an industry that is full of greenwashing and full of gimmicks. I mean, the oral care space is almost all marketing. There's very little innovation around the ingredients, other than maybe hydroxyapatite and a few others. But the rest of it's all just marketing: max whitening, triple whitening, quadruple whitening. It's all just the same, right? And so it's my job to sort of filter through the latest cutting edge research, like things like probiotics, which genuinely can have a positive impact, and bring that into the space in a credible way where I'm using the right concentrations of these active ingredients instead of just putting them in at 0.01% and then leveraging the marketing claims. So that's the sort of nitty gritty detail.
I think the pathology that you self-diagnosed yourself with, I think we can all relate to that, and we probably all could diagnose ourselves with that. I know that I have a problem just sitting there and not learning. Like if I have time, I want to be improving. That could be health. That could be business, that could be cleaning, something. Yeah. I just always want to be improving.
You're a productivity addict.
Totally. And I think that's a problem. I think that's a problem. I think we need to be able to just sit and be with ourselves. And that's why meditation is so great. That's
why we both do jiu-jitsu, because try thinking about business when you've got a 90 kilogram Filipino man on your head. It's not going to work, but we're still getting a bit of productivity because we're getting the health benefits. So we're tricking ourselves.
Cheating ourselves.
Simon, you said something that really resonated with me, which is that you have had the entrepreneurship bug from birth, right? And you've tried a lot of different businesses. How did you decide to sink your teeth into Parla?
Just to go back a second, I think it's important to say that I actually didn't really have it from birth. And the reason I say that is just to give solace to people that maybe don't have it if they're the younger part of their career. So up until really when I started dentistry, which wasn't until I was 22, I don't think you really would have thought of me as the same person. If I didn't have great drive, I wouldn't describe myself as particularly successful at that stage. I hadn't really found any direction. I wasn't health focused at all. At my 18th birthday, for example, my mum had to sort of drag me up to give a thank you speech. Whereas like it only needs to be like a Tuesday now, and I'll give you like a 5-minute monologue of how we should all love each other and have a wonderful life together. So I think I'm not one of those people that was like outside my parents' house selling lemonade from age 5, like Gary Vee or someone like that. It's more something that I've grown into. And I think I've grown into it because when I started dentistry, I found the thing that actually I was both passionate about and good at. And winning a relatively small award in my first year at dental school sort of completely flicked a switch in my head, which then drove me to go on this success treadmill. And entrepreneurship just came in, I think, naturally as a part of that self-development. So I guess I was a bit of a late bloomer in that regard. To answer your question, Ingrid, why Parla? Again, I follow my heart with regards to the opportunities that I engage in. I'm very cognizant of what I say yes to and what I say no to, especially in my latter years now that I'm a parent. I always like to say to young dentists, like say yes to everything in your 20s, say no to everything in your 30s. Not everything, but like almost everything. Because if you say yes to everything now, then your diary is going to be insane in a few months' time. But with Parla, it was one of those things, just like my retreat that I've just launched, was one of those things that was in my head for so long that I couldn't say no to it any longer. And that's why I eventually took the leap and obviously front-loaded a lot of personal investment in it to get it where it is today.
Every other dentist that I know is trying to find a way to diversify their income. Like It's like every dentist is kind of scared of the fact that everything they do depends on their hands. And if they're not there, they're not producing, they're not making money. So they have that pressure, right? That is normal. It's smart to feel that pressure and to understand and to be scared of it, right?
Yep.
So diversifying, I think it's key. And we see that more and more dentists are trying to find ways to make money, complement their money in different ways. Also because it allows them to work as a clinician a little less. And that's also great because it's a very, very tough job that we know. So you said, when you have 3 days a week, you're working as a clinician and then the other 2 taking care of other parts of your life, you start to find the balance to produce as much as you can, raise your income, empower your team, have people stepping up and doing stuff that you used to do, and things just happen and it works usually, right? Today, if you could divide percentage-wise kind of your time, your working time, from what I got here, you have made basically 3 roles. You are a clinician, so you work as a clinician. You work as a manager of your office. That is a completely different job. So you run your clinic, and you are an executive in your new company, Parla, the toothpaste company. So you have 3 jobs, I would say. Is that correct?
Well, you could add into that. Last year, I was the president of the British Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry, so that was a 4th job.
Yes.
And then I guess you could add in like public speaking and lecturing as like a 5th role, and then obviously being a dad
and a husband.
I'm not even putting the personal side.
Yeah.
Dad, husband, healthcare, taking care of health.
I would say those have been. I mean, throw BACD and lecturing into one bucket, maybe.
Uh-huh.
But that's how I sort of allocated in my own mind.
And percentage-wise, being a clinician, managing your clinic, and running Parla, how do you divide, if you could, more or less, in numbers?
In percentage?
Yeah, in percentage.
So I guess it would be around 50% clinical still. And then, to be honest, my wife does most of the managerial side of the dental practice. I'm, again, more of the ideas guy. She's my chief operating officer. Mm-hmm. So I would say maybe 20% on running the practice, 25%. And then, I mean, the problem with Parla is I can split it up like this for you, but the reality is that Parla is a 24/7 job because it takes up a lot of time. And so I'm working it out in the sort of number of days that I spend on these things. But the reality is that a startup is a 7 days a week job. It's certainly not one for you to diversify if you want to reduce your workload.
When you're treating a patient and you're doing a prep, for example, ideal world is that you can do that without thinking on the other two roles, right? That's the
Correct.
challenge. So,
and I'm pretty good at that, and I do. Like when I'm in the clinic, and I'm focused on the patient that's in the chair. Like both of you guys, my parents were dentists. Well, I think both of my parents are dentists. I think just your dads were both dentists. Correct me if I'm wrong. But my dad always says the most important person is the person in the chair right now, even if you've got 5 people waiting outside. And so I've always taken that very much to heart with regards to my clinical work.
Your clinic is still your main income, even.
Yes, if we're talking about profitability, yes.
But you hope that one day Parla will allow you to do clinical work as a hobby.
Absolutely. I mean, the total addressable market for my product is everyone in the world. And we're in all of the locations that we would need to be in to have a £100 million plus company. And I would be very proud if we achieved that. And that's the journey that we're on.
Do you think Parla is already past the startup phase? And because I think it's always, people are always inspired by entrepreneurs and bringing their companies and starting their companies, but 95% of startups don't work. The 5% that may work, most of them
Also fail.
Only bring revenue after 5-10 years. So it's a very, very hard path, right? So where do you see Parla in this process?
So I mean, I'm obviously fully aware of the stats of which you speak, and we've already passed the first year, which is when most people fail, and we've already passed the £1 million revenue or $1 million revenue, which is where the next tranche of people fail. So we're past that stage. And I would describe us as being in the scale-up stage now. Like we have proved our product market fit. We've proved that there's a genuine demand for a product like ours, a really credible, health-focused, sustainably focused oral care brand that is actually designed by dentists. And now it's just a question of our execution and, to be completely honest, our drive and resilience, because you only fail, in my opinion, when you quit. And I'm not quitting anytime soon. So as long as we're still alive and we're still moving forward, I'm determined to make it a success. And I think sometimes people start startups without that resilience and grit to drive forward. There's been so many really awful challenges that I've had to experience through Parla that have been very, very difficult. But again, I'm going into it with a growth mindset that I'm either going to learn or I'm going to win. And I think the most important thing is that you're enjoying the journey along the way. And I know that sounds trite and a little overused, but I think that's the only answer to the dichotomy that I've always had in my head, which is how can you be ambitious and driven by success, but also be happy and grateful and peaceful with the position that you're in right now? And the only answer that I've come to that joins those two dots is to enjoy the journey along the way. And I think that's what I'm really focusing on with Parla, is being aware of all of the amazing people and the amazing opportunities. Like I've just completed a mini MBA program that I won a place on, and I've met loads of amazing people in the investment banking space and in the, you guys would call it CPG, we call it FMCG, but in the consumer goods space, all these incredible founders. Who knows, like in 15 years time, where I'll be and where one of those connections could lead me. Who even remembers how I met you guys? I mean, this is the wonderful thing about life, right? Like Kyle, we first met in Vegas at Dance by Sirona, but we were chatting online before that. Christian, I met you in Luxembourg, I think, of all places, for the first time. You probably don't remember that, but it was 2013, I think.
So obviously, everyone here has transitioned. You're still halfway clinical, halfway running Parla, venture-backed company. You're in the scale phase now. Something I've been traveling. We don't know each other very well. I've been traveling and working for about a month now in Europe. And the whole time I've been here, I've thought to myself, I need to take a day off because I haven't actually taken a day off here. And the reason why is because two fronts on my mind 24/7. So obviously mental health and wellness is a big part of your formula. You and Kyle just spoke about how jujitsu is amazing because it helps you be present. Do you have suggestions for when you're not doing jujitsu, how to stay present?
I think it's practice like anything else, right? So to be completely honest with you, I'm probably not the best person to ask because I'm not I'm not the best at it. I find I have to be carrying out specific activities to implement it. So jiu-jitsu, for example, exercise. Christian and I share a love of daily exercise. And so I work out every day because that gives me presence. I meditate every day because that gives me presence. And then I guess the only other thing that really focuses me is I'm a big fan of Stoic philosophy. And memento mori is a classic Stoic phrase that means remember death. And I know that's a bit morbid, but when I look at my kids and I realize that one day I won't be around them anymore, and I'm sat there on my phone, like sending a message for some, are you allowed to swear on this podcast? You got some bullshit, like stuff that I'm dealing with that really is irrelevant. That gives me the most presence of all. So I think I'm very good at being present when I'm around loved ones, because that is what is the most important thing in my life. In the other times, if I'm driving in my car, I'm always listening to a podcast or I'm always on the phone. So any of the sort of transitory times in life, I'm not very present. But when it's an important time, like when I'm on holiday, I am present. And I make sure, although it sounds like I'm a workaholic and all I do is work, anyone that knows me knows that I go on a lot of holidays. And the reason for that is
that's because you live in the UK. You guys love to go on holidays because the weather sucks.
Yeah, exactly. That is true as well. But having those blocks of presence, I guess, balances my presence bank to make sure that I'm on a level keel, because otherwise I probably would burn out from just continuous driving, which I don't think is healthy. Even if you're loving what you're doing. I like what you said. And I think it's a really good, I don't think you need to feel bad about driving and listening to a podcast, because I started my personal growth journey back in 2017. I started having really two ways of thinking about my day. It was like, I'm either doing something that is like my purpose in life and my family time, basically, or I'm working. That's kind of how I think about it. And so when I'm in my car driving to an appointment or to my practice or something like this, I feel like I'm already in my work time. So I might as well grow during that time. However, when I'm at home or when I'm at the beach with my family or something, I've tried to make it so that I physically separate myself from this thing. So I will, like, if we go on a walk with my family, I'll leave my phone at home. And my wife will be like, "You're not going to bring your phone?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just leaving it at home." So I don't think you need to feel bad about that. Yeah.
I think it's hard to be like present in every single moment. I mean, you could be present with that podcast.
Nowadays, it's very easy to be present. Just leave your phone behind.
I was going to say, it sounds like that's...
It's before the phone was, today everything that doesn't matter that much is centralized on the phone. Of course, there's a lot of things that matter in terms of business or decisions that you do through the phone. But if you know that you're not going to save the world on the next 15 minutes, half an hour, you just leave your phone. It's of course, it's stupid to say this, but that's what it is, right? And it's so hard. You feel like you're naked without the phone.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with Jonathan Haidt, Haidt, I think is the way you spell his surname. But he's really been driving the sort of phone-free childhood movement that's happening at the moment.
Very good guy. Very good.
Yeah, really, really interesting. And it's making its way through the schools. My kids are still quite young, so they're not really at that stage yet, but it's making the way through the schools that they're saying no phones before 16 and all this sort of stuff. But one thing I found really interesting is just how quickly your kids replicate what you do. And I've always said, like, my kids are not getting a phone, not a smartphone anyway. They can have a Nokia or something, but they're not having a smartphone until they're 16. But yet, if they see me on my phone every single day, it doesn't matter what I'm doing on it. They see the back of this phone. They think that daddy loves that phone more than I love them because that's what's got all my attention. And so the moment that clicked in my head, I was like, right, I'm never going to be more focused on this than them when I'm in their space. And it's so interesting, like my daughter, she's only like 6, but we were just away on holiday recently and she's like, "Oh, mummy, can I do yoga with you?" And she's like down with like a yoga mat, like doing yoga with my wife. And it's like, your kids just replicate everything you do. So that's really helped me to step away from my phone, because like I couldn't think of anything worse than what I'm doing here, having a negative impact on their development, because the evidence suggests that it definitely will do.
No, that's so obvious, and this guy is really amazing, and I hope, and I really believe that we should all jump into this movement and help the
And
world.
we've made a pact with my son's friends' parents. We've made a pact that none of us are going to give our kids the phone before 16, so that it's not like, well, this kid has it and my friend has it. So because we live in a very, very small town, it's a little bit easier to do. But we've done it with all of the parents in our little small town. So it's been really nice. And in LA, I think it's a greater LA school district or something. They're outlawing phones in high school. I think you can leave your phone in your locker, but you can't have your phone with you during class and all that.
And it should be like that. You cannot be with your phone inside the class. It doesn't make any sense. And it's a big topic in dentistry, because I know the whole world is in the phone, but dentistry is, I think, probably one of the professions that really took over social media as the professional path. So, for example, my wife, she's not a dentist, and of course she's on social media, but as a hobby, not as a job. We dentists, we kind of mix. Now, Instagram is a hobby or is a job for you? We don't know. We cannot define, because it's mixed. And every dentist is learning that they need to push, that they need to be there. And then you see dentists when they're at home in front of the phone all the time and not focusing on what really matters, right?
It's like telling your kids to read when you don't read. Like telling your kids to be present when you don't know how to be present yourself. It's the new phenomenon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Simon, you are someone that I feel like knows who you are, and you've been on this personal growth journey. You and I really connected about mental health. I mean, back in, I don't know when it was, 18 or 19, whenever we started talking. You're hosting a retreat that's coming up soon, so tell us about that. But also, what are some strategies that you can give for having a healthy balance, for personal growth, for health to dentists? Because we know that dentists are 17 times more likely to commit suicide, twice as likely to suffer from depression, anxiety, and panic disorder. You finally learned who you are. I think for me, I think I was 35, and I think Christian told me he was about 35 when he realized who he was. So tell me more about your personal growth journey.
Yeah, I mean, as I've been quite open with in the past, all of this stuff, I think it's amazing when you watch a lot of podcasts and listen to a lot of podcasts, how many individuals who are very successful in their own arena have personal issues or trauma in their childhood or things that they've gone through, and it spits out this successful individual sometimes. So I've certainly been on that journey myself. My sister was very ill when we were kids, so that I think really shaped the individual that I am. I think in answer to knowing who I am, I live my life through a very narrow lens of what's my mission statement for life, what are my core values, and what are the 5 things that I want my 90-year-old self on his deathbed to look back and say, that was an amazing life. And so I think by being really simple with my matrix for decision making, it allows me to be very clear with the direction that I'm moving in. The retreat
you're thinking like Eisenhower matrix type of thing?
I'm not familiar with that one.
Are you familiar with that? Okay. It's basically like, we've talked about it on the show before, but what's urgent and what's important, what's not urgent, what's not important. And so
like a 2x2. Yeah.
It sounds like something similar to how you're thinking.
Yeah. I think people just stroll through life without a real thought about how they're applying their time. They follow their colleagues because that's what everyone else is doing. And I think I have a natural aversion to that, in that actually I always want to do the exact opposite of what everyone else is doing. And when everyone starts doing it, like you speak about social media with dentistry, Christian, I've been using Instagram for dentistry since 2016. I think it was my first clinical post. And now I'm just so bored by it. Like I like posting clinical cases. I'm like, oh, I kind of feel like I should do it, but I'm just so done with it. And so, yeah, that's quite interesting. But the reasoning behind wanting to launch the retreat, as you say, like the study in the UK that I referenced was done by Dental Protection, who are they're a medical defence union in the UK, and they found that 50% of dentists want to leave the profession for reasons of personal well-being, and that's been replicated, I think, by the ADA figure is even higher. more recently. And so I was like, well, I get it. I fully get it. And no one's really doing anything about it. So I'm really knowledgeable about personal development and health and wellness and health optimization because they're serious passions of mine. And I also know how to look into the research on these things. So why don't I pull those things together and actually try and provide, like, I'm not going to be anyone's guru or tell them they do this and X will happen. But if we can come together and build a bit of a community around self-development and supporting each other, and that's obviously a key part of most things in life is having a tribe and a community, then maybe I can make, again, just like with Parla, I can make a tiny impact on the impact of the plastic on the ocean. I can make a tiny impact on what I would describe as a personal well-being epidemic, whatever you want to call it, in dentistry, then that'd be really cool. So yeah, that's why I decided to launch the retreat, 3-day retreat in a beautiful country estate where we'll all be living together and learning together. We've got a breathwork coach coming. We've got a health and wellness coach coming. We're going to go wild swimming, and it's all built around really the pillars of. I use the word success in the marketing only because that's what people understand, but it's really fulfillment and wellness as like the 2 core pillars built out. This sort of what I call the Great Smile framework. GREAT is the acronym for the things that, according to the evidence, will lead to a fulfilling career, and the SMILE acronym are the key pillars for health and wellness.
Amazing. I love what you said about research, because I think this topic of personal growth and development can sound kind of fluffy and kind of woo-woo to us scientists. But when you actually go to the research, there's so much research on this. Oh my God. I mean, the research on meditation is fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's really good.
The gray matter in your brain grows after only 6 weeks of meditation, and your amygdala shrinks after only 6 weeks of meditation. Like, you're physically changing your brain to be less reactive. Little things like communication patterns and protocols. We dentists love to have recipes and proof and science on everything we do clinically. And there's so much proof and science on all of this personal growth stuff. And I think we think about it as like, oh, it's just like a yoga teacher teaching this. Like, no, there is so much science on this. So I like that you said that. And I think that will really relate to the dental world. That's what I've tried to do with a lot of my teachings, is come from a fact base and show them the proof. And they're like, oh my gosh. And then kind of go into the more emotional side of it.
Yeah, I mean, you can go really far out the spectrum, right, around this whole topic. And lots of people are really passionate about, especially if you get into the longevity world, people are really passionate. You should eat red meat, you shouldn't eat red meat, you should eat this, should eat that. I very much try to stay clear of anything that is not really solid in science. No one's going to argue that exercising every day is going to not only make you feel better in the short term, but it's also going to extend your lifespan and reduce your risk of disease. Like, that is an absolute fact that nobody on the planet can disagree with. And yet it's so simple, but nobody's utilizing it.
Like with exercise, there's studies that show that a very huge study called The Lancet in 2018,
the SMILE study.
It reduces your poor mental health days by 43% per month. I'll tell people, don't exercise to look better in a bathing suit. That is the result, right? That's a side effect maybe, but do it to feel better.
And it was done on like 1.2 that study. So it's like a huge study. I think it was done on 1.2 million, was it? Yeah. It's big. Yeah. So yeah, that was the idea. So as I say, it's a new format. I think it's going to be a really exciting few days. I really want to build, as I say, the community side of it, I think is really lacking. And obviously, especially for people that are struggling with their mental health, having a community of people that are trying to grow together and are supportive will hopefully be sort of a really nice secondary benefit, as well as the sort of raw learning and education that I hope to pack into the few days that we're there.
Amazing.
Plus we'll have fun as well, right?
Well, listen, I know we're wrapping up right now. Speaking of fact versus fluffy, I have one left field question for you. Given what you're building in, fluoride or hydroxyapatite formulation for toothpaste?
It's a really interesting question, actually. So I'm a big fan of the phrase strong opinions loosely held. And I think in dentistry, we can be very tied to our dogmas. And when new information is presented to us, we can be very slow to change. Now, I don't think that there is significant evidence to support any issues with fluoride. I've seen some studies from Harvard around fluoride in water and kids' IQ and stuff like that. But I think fluoride in toothpaste, I'm yet to see any compelling evidence that tells me that it's a bad idea. But interestingly, there is now a randomized double-blind controlled trial done over 18 months showing that hydroxyapatite can be as effective as fluoride in caries prevention. And therefore, from that point of view, and there's other studies that support that same position, I'm open to the idea of utilizing the correct concentration of hydroxyapatite instead of fluoride, if that's what you want to do. I'd certainly rather that than a toothpaste that contains no active ingredients, which is what a lot of the more green products out there have positioned themselves in. So that's kind of my current position on it. But it's a moving flux, and as I say, I try to stay abreast of the latest research. If new information is presented to me, then I will take that information. One thing that is very, very clear is that obviously fluoride has been hugely the most powerful agent that we've ever had to reduce decay. In kids going under a general anaesthetic, the number one reason that kids under 6 are going under general anaesthetic in the UK is they've got dental decay. So I think a move away from fluoride would be a very dangerous move.
My question is always, who's funding those double-blind clinical control trials?
Which is why you need multiple different sources saying the same thing, right?
Exactly. Well, listen, thank you so much for coming onto our show. I feel like I've learned so much from you on entrepreneurship, mental health and wellness. You're inspiring me to go back to meditation. It's one of these things that I'm always like, yeah, it's on my to-do list, and one day I'll get to it. But Kyle, Simon, you're both inspiring me to say, okay, maybe tomorrow morning's the day that I get started.
I'd recommend the Waking Up from Sam Harris. That's the one that I've found
amazing
to be the most powerful.
And where can people find you, Simon?
I'm most commonly found on Instagram, unfortunately, unless I'm being present with my kids, of course. So my handle's at Dr. Simon Chard. And if you want to check out Parla, we ship internationally. It's at Parla Toothpaste Tabs or parlatoothpastetabs.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you again.
Get the f*** up out the chair. Whoa.